The chandeliers above shimmered like a crown over the elite, casting golden reflections across champagne flutes and diamond necklaces. Laughter drifted between tables dressed in black satin and candlelight. Daniel Royce stood at the podium, crisp, in a charcoal tuxedo, his voice smooth as silk and just as dangerous. He leaned slightly forward, smiling. When I started the Royce Foundation, I wanted to build more than hospitals and schools. I wanted to rebuild faith. His gaze scanned the room, practiced and warm. Faith in progress, faith in each other. And tonight I see that dream alive in all of you. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and like, spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. Applause thundered. Beside him, Serafina's fingers brushed his jacket sleeve lightly, like a punctuation mark to the perfect image. She wore a deep crimson gown that hugged her like a secret. Her smile was poised, unshakable, like she belonged to the world of men like Daniel. He looked down at her briefly. Something unspoken passed, intimate, proprietary. Cameras captured the moment. Journalists scribbled. Socialites sipped. The illusion was seamless, until the host returned to the microphone. Camille Reeve, the night's MC, had hosted for years, trusted, elegant, familiar. Her voice, moments ago light and flowing, now cut sharper than glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, stepping up with an unreadable expression, "we have one final moment to share before dinner is served." Daniel's brow furrowed, slightly. His body, relaxed and confident just seconds ago, shifted in subtle tension. "Tonight's gala is about transparency, about truth," Camille continued, her tone soft but deliberate. "And in that spirit, we're honored to welcome a very special guest, Mrs. Vivian Royce." A gasp fluttered through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Serafina's hand dropped from Daniel's sleeve. He didn't move. "And her children," Camille added, voice still calm. "Please, welcome them." The ballroom held its breath. Some guests turned instinctively toward the back entrance of the room. Others whispered, in confusion, glancing at the woman beside Daniel. Now stiff, pale. He blinked once, just once. But in that blink, the room changed. The music stopped. A rustle of fabric and high heels echoed as all eyes shifted. A woman emerged through the parting crowd. She walked slowly, dressed in a midnight blue dress. Her hand held a child's, another followed close behind. Her posture was tall. Not defiant, not triumphant, just steady. Daniel inhaled. Barely. Beside him, Serafina didn't speak, didn't breathe. Cameras lowered. Guests murmured. Vivian Royce looked ahead, not at her husband, not at Serafina, but at the empty space beside the podium, the one she was never supposed to fill again. Daniel stepped back, his face unreadable, his jaw clenched. Serafina reached for his arm, but he didn't respond, and Camille, ever the professional, offered one last line. "Every truth has its moment, and this is hers." The air inside the ballroom shifted, electric, fractured. Conversations dissolved mid-sentence, and forks froze halfway to lips. Vivian Royce stepped forward through the parted crowd, heels clicking on marble, her hand clasping that of her youngest daughter, Lily. Her presence felt ghostly, not because she was frail, but because she wasn't supposed to exist. Not here. Not now. And certainly not beside Daniel Royce, her still legal husband, who stood locked in place like a statue with a blown fuse. Vivian's face was composed, but her grip on Lily's hand betrayed the pressure beneath. She guided her daughter slowly toward the stage steps. Her dark blue gown shimmered subtly with every step, dignified but not flashy. The hem brushed the floor like a silent threat. Serafina's lips parted, but no words came. Her arms fell to her sides, a crimson blur against the black and gold backdrop. She looked at Daniel, searching his face for a lie that might make this go away. Vivian reached the edge of the stage. A camera shutter clicked, then another. The sound grew louder, overlapping with whispers. Somewhere a reporter muttered, "This can't be real, Weren't they separated?" Daniel turned finally, slowly. "Vivian," he said under his breath, a flicker of panic passing through the steel of his voice. Vivian stepped up, onto the stage with a grace that came not from performance but from pain earned over time. She held Lily close. The child clung to her side, eyes wide, confused, but trusting. Her little white dress swayed with each step, a tiny anchor in the storm. Camille Reeves stepped aside without a word. Vivian faced the audience, donors, executives, socialites. Many had shaken her hand years ago at this very gala, before Daniel slowly removed her from his world, image by image, event by event. She reached the mic. Serafina took a small step backward. Daniel looked out over the crowd, calculating, trapped. Vivian's voice was steady. "We were never divorced." Silence. She let it sit. Then she repeated it. Slower. "Daniel, Royce and I were never divorced." Gasps. Audible now. A woman near the front raised her hand to her mouth. Someone else dropped their wine glass. Vivian looked toward Daniel, but not with bitterness. Her gaze held something colder. Clarity. "Our marriage license was never voided. No papers signed, no agreements filed. Which means..." She looked toward Serafina. "This is not just deception. It's public fraud." Serafina blinked. "I didn't know," she whispered. "He said..." Vivian cut her eyes back to the crowd. "I have no interest in spectacle, but when a man builds his empire on family values, then attempts to erase the family, someone must speak." Behind her, Lily clutched her arm tighter. Vivian softened just slightly, placing a hand over hers. Daniel stepped forward, jaw tense. "Vivian, this isn't..." But Camille spoke first, returning to the mic with practiced poise. "Thank you, Mrs. Royce." She turned to the audience, voice slicing through the tension. "Dinner will now be served." Vivian stepped back into the shadows, but the damage had already been done, and in the far corner, a camera light turned red. Recording. The ballroom faded into a blur, the clinking of silverware and murmurs dissolving behind her. Vivian sat silently, in the back, Lily asleep on her shoulder. Cameras still clicked, but she was no longer their focus. Her eyes drifted shut, and when they opened again, the room was gone, replaced by a sprawling mansion bathed in morning light 6 years ago. The floors gleamed like mirrors, everything spotless, everything staged. "I used to think the silence meant peace," Vivian's voice echoed softly in narration. "Then I learned silence was just the beginning of disappearance." The scene unfolded like a memory under glass. Daniel walked in, phone to his ear, briefcase in hand. He didn't look at her. He hadn't in weeks. She stood in the kitchen doorway, holding a letter. Her voice trembled as she said, "You closed the joint account?" He didn't stop walking. "We're restructuring everything. For the brand. It's temporary." "You didn't tell me," she said. He looked up then, just for a second, cold, distracted. "Because it's not your concern, Viv. This isn't personal, it's strategy." Narration returned. "He called it protecting me. Said if I didn't touch the accounts, there'd be no liability, no headlines, no questions." In the next scene, Vivian sat at her vanity, staring at a makeup brush in her hand, frozen. Outside the window, nannies played with the children on the lawn. Daniel's voice drifted from another room on a conference call. "I stopped appearing in articles, stopped being invited to events. My name disappeared from press releases. Even our anniversary went unmentioned." She reached for a framed photo, her and Daniel at a gala, laughing. The glass had a faint crack down the center. She gently placed it face down. In the following days, she tried to keep pace. Wore the gowns, smiled at the staff, made small talk at fundraisers. But each time, Daniel was just a step ahead. Booking flights without telling her, changing security codes, hosting dinners she wasn't invited to. I started to feel like a guest in my own home. One night she approached him as he packed a suitcase. "You're leaving again?" she asked. He didn't look up. Board meeting in Berlin. You wouldn't understand. It's technical. She stood there, barefoot, arms folded. You said, we'd talk about Paris, about the foundation. You promised. He cut her off. Vivian, don't make this harder than it needs to be. You have the kids, isn't that enough? Narration deepened. He said it so easily, as if motherhood should be my consolation prize for being erased. The next morning, a new assistant arrived, Serafina. Young, efficient, smiling too often. Vivian offered her tea. The girl declined, then immediately went to Daniel's office, closing the door behind her. I was watching a replacement rehearse my life, and I still didn't see it. Not then. The scene faded. Back in the ballroom, Vivian's eyes fluttered, open. Her arms instinctively held Lily closer. Camille passed behind her, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. You did well, she whispered. Vivian didn't answer. Instead, she looked down at the floor, remembering the invisible thread Daniel had used to pull her out of the spotlight. But she wasn't invisible anymore. And somewhere behind velvet, curtains and locked phones, Daniel was scrambling. She could feel it. The skyline outside Serafina's penthouse glowed with 1,000 careless lights, each one oblivious to the wreckage unraveling inside. She stood barefoot in the center of her living room, gripping a half-empty wine bottle, knuckles pale. Her reflection in the glass wall showed a woman still wrapped in crimson silk, but the elegance had collapsed. Her mascara had bled. Her hair, once perfectly swept, now fell in angry waves. She hurled the bottle. It shattered against the far wall, spraying red across the white marble like blood on snow. I wasn't supposed to care, she whispered to herself, breathing hard. She lowered herself to the floor, glass crunching beneath her as she crouched in her own mess, fingers trembling. Her phone buzzed beside her. Screen cracked, but the name still lit up. Daniel Royce. She stared at it. Let it ring. Narration crept in, layered over the stillness. When I first met Daniel, it wasn't romantic. It was business. I was recruited by Royce Media Group, not because I was special, but because I was polished, malleable, controlled. Flashback. 2 years earlier. Serafina sat in a sleek midtown office across from a woman in pearls and a tailored blazer. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, Daniel Royce's entire public profile. Notes, photos, polling data. He's a powerhouse, and the woman said. But the family angle isn't working anymore. We need someone younger, global, relatable, someone who can soften him. Serafina flipped the page. Her own modeling headshot stared back at her. Think of this like brand consulting, the woman added. You'll be introduced at select functions, dinners, photos. We handle the rest. Serafina had nodded. She needed the money. She liked the thrill. Back in the present, she pulled herself up from the floor and stumbled into the bathroom. Her eyes were puffy, smudged. She splashed water on her face. It was a role, she whispered into the mirror. Just a role. Except it hadn't stayed that way. Flashback again. Daniel and Serafina sitting on a yacht deck, laughter light, champagne flutes between them. He leaned in and said, I'm not like they say I am. Another night. A hotel room. Rain against the window. He traced his finger down her back and whispered, You're not disposable. You're different. I wanted to believe him, Serafina's voice said, because for a moment I wasn't playing anyone, I was just with him. But the illusion shattered when Vivian Royce walked on stage, when the truth rearranged itself. She stood now by her closet, staring at rows of gowns bought with Daniel's money. Designer shoes still tagged, bribes dressed up as affection. Her phone buzzed again. Voicemail this time. Daniel's voice, cold and clipped. We need to talk. Do not speak to anyone. Everything's under control. She deleted the message. Because she finally understood. She wasn't the scandal. She was the strategy. Her laptop glowed across the room. She sat down, logged in, opened a folder labeled NDA's Royce Group. She clicked, hesitated, then selected all and hit forward. The email address she typed in, CamilleReeveTruthFiles.org. She hit send, and for the first time in 2 years, she exhaled. The envelope was unmarked. No return address, no note, just thick parchment paper that smelled faintly of cologne and panic. Vivian sat across from her lawyer, Arjun Mehta, in a quiet corner of his office, the blinds drawn tight. Arjun pushed the flash drive across the table. It arrived 3 weeks ago. No signature, no tracking, just this. Vivian stared at it. Small, silver, innocent looking, but in her gut, it felt like a bomb. Arjun leaned in. I didn't want to show you until after the gala. You were already walking into fire, but now, he paused. You need to hear this. She nodded once, her fingers cold as she took it. He inserted it into his laptop and pressed play. A voice crackled through the speakers. Daniel's, calm, clinical. Vivian's becoming unpredictable, he said. She's clinging to the foundation, asking about press releases, showing up at board meetings uninvited. Another voice, male, older. She's still your wife on paper, that creates exposure. She's unstable, Daniel said. The postpartum, whatever's left of it, is affecting her judgment. I want a path that's clean, quiet. We dissolve the marriage, full NDA, seal the estate. And I want her placed somewhere discreet. A wellness center, coastal, private, frame it as voluntary. Vivian gripped the edge of her chair, nails digging into the wood. Arjun paused the recording. We can stop. She shook her head. No, keep going. Click. Another voice now, female, precise. There may be resistance. Legally, she'll need to consent to any facility transfer, unless we pursue guardianship. Daniel again. Then start building a case. Emotional instability, depression, something the court can digest. I want this done before Q3. I'm launching the rebrand in September. Vivian's breath stuttered. Narration, her voice. They didn't just want to erase me. They wanted to lock me away. Rewrite my existence until I was just a cautionary tale, a deleted tab. The audio ended with laughter, Daniel's. A low, satisfied chuckle, like it was all just business. Arjun closed the laptop slowly. This isn't just morally repulsive, it's legally actionable. Vivian said nothing. She stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the city. Her reflection looked fragile in the glass. But her voice didn't waver. They called me unstable. But I was grieving. I was trying to understand why the man who once built me birthday gardens was now planting my public execution. She turned. He wasn't afraid of me breaking down, he was afraid of me standing up. Arjun nodded. Then let's stand. He slid a folder across the table. Affidavits, timestamps, legal pathways. Vivian didn't touch it yet. She stared at the flash drive. I need Camille, she said suddenly. And I need Serafina. Arjun blinked. You want to bring them into this? They're already in it, she said. They just don't know how deep. She picked up the flash drive, slipped it into her purse. Outside, the city carried on, cars humming, people rushing, deals closing. But in Vivian's world, the silence had broken, and the truth was just beginning to speak. The world saw Daniel Royce as a titan, flawless, generous, untouchable. But to 11-year-old Noah, he was just the man who stopped saying goodnight. He sat at the edge of his twin bed now, knees pulled to his chest, voice soft as his mother tucked his little brother in nearby. The soft glow of the nightlight lit the edges of his face, casting a faint halo on the wall. Narration began. Noah's, voice steady but older somehow, like he was remembering from far away. They told us Mom was sick, that she needed rest, that she wasn't well enough to go outside or answer the door or hug us for too long. Flashback. A hallway bathed in silence. Noah, 5 years younger, stands outside his parents' bedroom door, a teddy bear in hand. He hears muffled sobs, the sound of glass hitting the floor. A sharp, low voice. Then silence. He doesn't open the door. He just presses his small palm to the wood, unsure whether to knock. I believed them, his voice continues. Because I wanted to, because I needed to. The scene shifts. A breakfast table. Daniel in a navy suit sipping coffee, reading from a tablet. Noah sits across from him, eyes down. Vivian isn't there. Where's Mom? Noah asks quietly. Daniel flips a page on the screen. She's resting. She's not feeling like herself these days, but she'll be okay. Daddy's taking care of everything. Another flash. Vivian in the hallway, a scarf wrapped tight around her wrist on a summer day. She smiles when Noah runs to hug her, but she winces when he squeezes too hard. You okay, Mom? He asks. She nods too fast. Of course, sweetheart, just tired. But later he sees her in the bathroom mirror trying to cover a bruise under her eye with makeup. She doesn't know he's watching. She stopped singing, Noah's voice says. Stopped laughing when Lily told jokes, her eyes got quieter. The memories come faster now. Daniel standing in the doorway of Noah's room, telling him to stop asking so many questions. You're a boy now, not a baby. Noah nodding, but wondering why being a boy meant pretending not to notice things. One night Noah crept downstairs. The staff had gone, the house was dim, hushed. He heard his mother on the phone whispering into the dark. I can't leave. He has everything. Even the kids' passports. I don't know who I am without him. Noah didn't sleep that night. Back in the present, he watches his mother now, stronger, quieter, standing at the window of their temporary apartment. She doesn't know I remember, he says. Vivian turns, catching him watching her. She smiles. A tired, real smile. He walks up to her, slips his hand into hers. She looks down, surprised. I'm glad you didn't leave, he says simply. I never wanted to, she whispers. He leans into her side. Narration closes. They said she was sick, but she wasn't. She was just surviving someone who made her believe she was broken. And in the background, a soft ding. Vivian's phone. A message from Camille. She sent the files. It's worse than we thought. In the low-lit editing bay of an independent media studio downtown, Camille Reeves sat hunched over a screen, scrubbing through footage frame by frame. Her hands moved quickly, her jaw tense. On the monitor, a paused frame of Vivian standing beside Lily at the Gala flickered in high resolution. The room was silent except for the rhythmic hum of machines and the quiet tap of keys. Vivian's voice rang out from the doorway behind her. You were always good at getting the angle no one else could. Camille turned, lips curling into a small smile. Takes one to know one. They embraced. A brief, quiet moment between women who had shared more than just stories. Narration. Camille's voice. Before the lights, before the stage, I was just a reporter covering small court cases and corporate abuse. But the Royce story, Vivian's story, changed everything. Flashback. 6 years ago. Camille, then an ambitious young journalist with sharp eyes and ink-stained fingers, met Vivian in the back of a hospital cafeteria. No cameras, no entourage. Just a mother with shadows under her eyes and a tremble in her voice. He's rewriting me, Vivian whispered, barely audible. He's telling the world I'm unfit, that I'm sick, and I don't even have proof. Camille slid a recorder across the table. Start here. The story never ran. Too risky, too unsubstantiated. Editors passed, lawyers hesitated, but Camille kept the files, and she waited. Back in the present, Camille clicked through the email Serafina had sent just hours ago. PDF after PDF, non-disclosure agreements, strategy memos, internal chats, all from Royce Media Group. Brand manipulation, emotional suppression, paid silence, Camille muttered. They called it reputation strategy. Vivian moved beside her, scanning the screen. They used women like props, and when we cracked, they buried us. Camille nodded. I didn't come back to destroy him. I came to expose the system that built him. Another flashback, months before the gala. Vivian and Camille sitting in a car outside a closed courthouse reviewing documents. A plan forming. Not for vengeance. For reckoning. Vivian asked. What if I walked onto the stage, just stood there? Would it be enough? Camille replied, not just stood there. You speak the truth. Let them see the version he erased. I'm scared, Vivian admitted. Camille didn't flinch. Good. That means it matters. Back in the studio, Camille opened a new file, her voice steady. We have the voice recordings, the facility plans, Serafina's emails, even a few anonymous ex-employees willing to speak off record. Vivian sat down slowly. Then we go public? Camille shook her head. Not yet. There's more beneath this. His money's protected, behind 10 layers of shell companies. If we go now, he'll bury the rest. Vivian leaned forward. So what do we do? Camille opened a folder labeled Royce Trust Holdings, Confidential. We pull the thread, she said, and we let it unravel everything. The room fell quiet. Vivian exhaled. And if he fights? Camille met her eyes. Then he bleeds. But legally, a chime broke the silence, an alert on Camille's screen. Incoming encrypted message. Sender, unknown. Subject, he's planning to move the children tonight. Vivian's heart dropped. Camille's eyes narrowed. The next move had just been made. The marble hallway behind the Gala ballroom was quiet. Too quiet. Far from the clinking glasses and careful laughter, the shadows felt colder here, like secrets had weight. Vivian stepped out from the restroom. Lily still asleep in the green room with Camille's assistant. She adjusted her bracelet, preparing to return to her table when a voice sliced the silence behind her. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She froze. Daniel emerged from the shadows, blazer unbuttoned, jaw tense. The practiced smile he wore on stage nowhere in sight. I knew you'd do something, he said, stepping closer. But this, parading the children? Making a scene like some wounded animal in front of donors? Do you understand what you've cost me? Vivian didn't flinch. I haven't even started. His voice dropped. You think the world will believe you over me? You're just another bitter wife. I'm Daniel Royce. You don't bury me, I bury people. She looked at him. Truly looked. For the first time in years. The charm was gone. The suit couldn't hide the rot anymore. He leaned in, breath sharp. Do you know how easy it would be to paint you as unstable again? All it takes is one appearance, one outburst, one story. You'll vanish and no one will blink. Vivian calmly opened her clutch. She pulled out a manila folder and handed it to him. He opened it and stilled. Inside, flight logs to a villa in the Maldives, Serafina's name on the guest manifest. Wire transfers from a shell company tied to Royce Holdings. Quarterly payments labeled consulting. Receipts for prenatal medical bills from a discreet private clinic, and last, stapled to the back, a paternity test. The name at the top, Aurora Lane. Age, 3. Daniel's throat clicked. I wondered why you didn't want full custody, Vivian said. Turns out you were too busy hiding another child. He shut the folder with a snap. You don't want to go to war with me. I don't, she said, voice even. But I will. If you move the children. He narrowed his eyes. That wasn't me. Vivian stepped back. Lie better. Narration entered, her voice edged with steel. He built an empire on silence. But he forgot the thing about buried things. Eventually the ground cracks. Daniel glanced behind her, his usual calm slipping. Whatever you think this is, it's not justice, it's spectacle. And it won't last. Vivian leaned in just enough for only him to hear. Justice is a process. Tonight was just the first draft. Her heels clicked against the marble as she turned and walked away, leaving him holding the evidence like a burning coal. She didn't look back, but she didn't need to, because outside that hallway, Camille was already loading the files, and Serafina was preparing to speak. The Royce estate loomed like a fortress beneath the moonlight, stone, steel, and silence. A monument to curated perfection, cold even in summer. Serafina stood at the edge of the circular driveway, arms crossed, chest rising and falling as her headlights cut across the sleek marble steps. She hadn't called ahead. She didn't care. The massive oak doors opened before she could knock. A house manager stood aside without a word, face pale, eyes flickering with pity or fear. She couldn't tell which. She walked in. Daniel was in the study, glass in hand, sleeves rolled up, phone pressed to his ear. His eyes flicked to her mid-sentence, but he didn't stop talking. Only when she shut the door behind her loudly did he end the call. "I didn't expect you," he said, pouring another drink without asking if she wanted one. "You promised me the truth," she said flatly. He swirled the glass. "I gave you everything you ever wanted." Serafina stepped forward. "No, you gave me an assignment. Then you gave me attention. And when I started to believe you, you gave me nothing." He turned, finally facing her. "Serafina, you were a means to an end. Let's not pretend it was more." The words struck like glass to skin, clean, deliberate, cruel. Her mouth opened, then closed. She stepped back, laughter bubbling in disbelief. "Wow, after everything. After I lied for you, signed my name on things I didn't even read, stood next to you like a puppet, this is what I get. You got a penthouse, a wardrobe, power," he said. "Don't confuse privilege with love." She stared at him, and, in that moment, the man she once thought magnetic, intelligent, composed, looked like nothing more than a cornered animal in an expensive suit. "No wonder you're afraid of Vivian," she whispered. "She sees what you really are." He smirked. "Vivian is broken. You'll end up just like her." "No," she said. "Vivian survived you. I almost didn't." Serafina turned before he could answer. She walked out calmly, but inside, something shattered. Back in her car, she sat in silence, hands trembling, heart racing, narration layered softly. "I came into this thinking I was part of something powerful, that I was the next chapter. But all I was an accessory to someone else's cover story." At home, she opened her laptop. Her encrypted folder sat where she left it. Contracts, voice memos, email threads, strategy decks from Royce's team outlining how to restructure public perception of the Royce marriage. She opened an email to CamilleReeveTruthFiles.org. Subject, "For Vivian, for me, for all of us." Attachments. 42. She hovered over the send button, paused, then clicked. The screen dimmed. Sent. She leaned back in her chair, tears streaking down her cheeks, quiet, exhausted, not from regret, but release. Across the city, Camille's phone buzzed, and somewhere in a courthouse basement, a legal assistant opened an anonymous file dump. The avalanche had begun. The courthouse steps overflowed with cameras, microphones, and shouting headlines. Reporters elbowed for angles. Banners read, "Royce versus Royce, Billionaire scandal deepens," and "The other woman breaks her silence." Daniel exited the black SUV first, flanked by lawyers in sharp suits and darker expressions. His smile was tight, strained, meant for optics. But behind the tinted glasses, he looked like a man standing on cracked ice. Vivian arrived later, alone. No entourage, no statement, just a gray wool coat, sunglasses, and a small notebook clutched in her hand. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Inside, the courtroom buzzed as the judge entered. Gavel, order. The trial began, not a criminal one yet, but a civil hearing that would decide the fate of multiple trusts, foundation assets, and custodial rights. Daniel's team spoke first, firm, rehearsed, dismissive. There is no credible evidence of financial misconduct, no mental coercion. The marriage had dissolved naturally due to incompatibility. Vivian sat at the plaintiff's table, still silent, her gaze steady. But when Serafina took the stand, the silence cracked. She walked slowly to the witness chair, her heels echoing in the hushed room. She wore no makeup. Her blouse was simple, her posture stiff. The bailiff swore her in. The lead attorney approached. "Ms. Lane, can you state your relationship to Mr. Royce?" She hesitated, I was part of a public relations contract tied to his media group. Was that contract romantic in nature? She glanced toward Daniel, his face tight, unmoving, then back to the jury. It became romantic. I thought it was real. I thought I mattered. Her voice trembled. But it was scripted, controlled. I was a character written into his rebrand. The attorney nodded. And did you knowingly participate in the concealment of his marital status? I did. At first I believed they were separated, but I found out later that wasn't true. I asked questions. I was told to stay quiet. She paused. Her voice broke slightly. I helped ruin a family, she said. I didn't know I was disposable. 2. The courtroom shifted. Reporters scribbling faster, murmurs rippling behind the benches. Daniel's lawyer objected. Emotional speculation, Your Honor. The judge shook her head. Let her finish. Serafina looked directly at Vivian now. I sent the files. Not for revenge, but because I needed to feel human again. Because you deserve to be heard. Vivian didn't move, but her grip tightened on the notebook in her lap. When the judge asked if the plaintiff would testify, Vivian stood, then sat back down. Her attorney nodded, declining. No words needed. Her silence spoke more than testimony ever could. Narration entered, low and steady, Camille's voice this time. Sometimes silence is survival, and sometimes it's strategy. Vivian chose hers like a weapon. Outside, the media spun. Pundits debated. Headlines blared. But inside, the courtroom froze on a single image. Daniel Royce, his mouth set, his legacy unraveling, and not a single person left on his side of the gallery. The judge adjourned for the day. As the room emptied, Serafina passed Vivian near the exit. I'm sorry, she whispered. Vivian looked at her. I know. And with that, they stepped into the corridor. 2 women once used to prop up a lie, now watching it burn from the inside. The news anchor's voice crackled through the dusty speaker of an old television perched on a chipped cabinet. Vivian sat cross-legged on the living room floor of a modest 2-bedroom apartment, the walls bare, the windows open to the evening breeze. Lily colored quietly on the rug beside her. On screen, a montage played. Daniel Royce removed as CEO of Royce Holdings. Board cites reputational catastrophe and emergency vote. Charity partners severed ties. His face flashed briefly, sunglasses, downcast eyes, lips tight as photographers chased him down courthouse steps. Vivian sipped her tea, eyes unmoving. Thank you. Narration on the TV continued. In just under 8 weeks, Daniel Royce's public empire collapsed, leaving investors stunned and associates silent. The board has issued a formal apology and has named interim leadership. No criminal charges have been filed. Yet. She muted the television. Narration, her voice now. Power doesn't just disappear. It corrodes. It spreads. It taints everything around it until no one remembers what clean ever looked like. She stood, walking slowly to the window. Outside, the street was quiet. No security gates, no private chauffeurs, just the ordinary rhythm of life. Neighbors chatting, car doors slamming, a dog barking somewhere in the distance. Flashback months ago, Daniel's penthouse high above the city. Noah sitting stiffly on a leather couch, Vivian beside him. Daniel tried to speak. I know things got messy, he said. But I'm still your father. That hasn't changed. Noah stared straight ahead. You told us Mom was crazy. She was unwell. You lied. Vivian placed her hand gently on Noah's shoulder, but he didn't move. Daniel reached out, but the boy flinched. Let's go, Noah whispered. Vivian nodded. They left. Back in the present, her phone buzzed. A message from the school. Noah's project won a district award. She smiled faintly. Another message followed. From unknown. He tried to see them again. We stopped it. See, Vivian locked the screen. She glanced toward the table where her legal folder still sat. Inside it, custody papers sealed, restraining order documents signed, court transcripts archived. But justice? Justice had never arrived. Just damage control, just consequences. Lily looked up at her. "Mom, what's poison?" Vivian blinked. "Where'd you hear that?" "The TV lady said his name was Poison." Vivian crouched beside her, brushing hair from her face. "It means people don't trust him anymore." "Did he hurt someone?" Vivian paused. "He hurt a lot of people." Lily nodded, satisfied with the answer, and went back to coloring. Narration again, low and thoughtful. "I thought taking everything from him would feel like victory, but all I felt was empty space, like cleaning a wound that had never fully healed." She picked up the remote and shut off the TV completely. No more headlines, no more anchors dissecting her life like a case file. Just silence and breathing and her children. She stood, crossing the room and pulling a folded slip of paper. From the drawer, Camille's note, handwritten. "This ends with your voice, but it begins with your peace." Vivian read it again, then looked out the window and whispered, "This isn't justice. A beat. But it's a beginning." If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. The ballroom looked almost identical to that night. Crystal chandeliers, white roses lining the tables, gold-rimmed glasses waiting to be filled. But this time there were no camera crews, no staged entrances, no whispered drama behind every napkin fold. It had been 1 year. Vivian stood just off stage, her hands lightly clasped in front of her. No stylist, no PR handler. Just a dark navy dress she'd chosen herself, simple and timeless. The gala organizer nodded from the wings. "You're up." She stepped forward. The applause was soft, polite, not frenzied or performative. There was no Daniel Royce on the program tonight, no scandal brewing in the corners, just silence, and her. She walked to the podium, heels steady, breath even. She paused before speaking, letting the room settle. "I wasn't sure I'd ever return here," she began. "This stage, this room, once held the performance of my erasure, and I was silent for a long time. But silence has a way of distorting things, of making people forget who you are." Her voice was calm, but every syllable landed with weight. "In this very room a man gave a speech, and behind him stood a lie so large it almost swallowed me whole. That lie wasn't just about infidelity or power or control. It was about something more dangerous, erasure, of a woman, of a mother, of a truth he couldn't manipulate." In the audience, a few heads lowered. Others held her gaze. There are men who buy silence, wrap it in contracts, feed it with expensive dinners and threatened reputations. But no matter how much they spend, no matter how many handlers or headlines they hire, she took a breath. There are women who survive it. The room stayed quiet. "Still, I don't stand here tonight as a victim," she continued. "I stand here as a witness to what power costs, to what silence hides, and to what love, real, fractured, enduring love, protects, even when it's forgotten." Her eyes scanned the back of the room, where she'd once stood with Lily trembling behind her composure. "I was always his wife," she said, voice tightening, "even when he pretended I didn't exist." A hush fell over the room like fog. Narration, soft and inward. "That night I didn't speak for applause. I spoke for closure, for the part of me that once screamed in silence, for the girl who believed bruises were proof of passion, for the woman who rebuilt herself with nothing but memory and instinct." She stepped away from the mic. There was no music, no spotlight, just the sound of heels clicking softly as she exited the stage. Outside, the air was cool. Vivian walked toward the waiting car, a modest sedan this time. In the back seat, Noah looked up from his book. Lily reached out sleepily. Vivian climbed in. No words, just warmth, just presence. And as the car pulled away from the gala, leaving behind the echoes of her final speech, she closed her eyes. Not To forget, but to finally rest. She had said all there was to say.